When we think of ancient Rome, we picture legions marching and senators debating. But what happened when the sun went down? While Rome slept, a different kind of army was on watch. These weren't famous soldiers. They were the city's first ever first responders. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the Vigiles, the men who guarded the world's biggest city from the chaos of the night. Just try to imagine that for a second. The sun dips below the horizon and the city you know completely transforms. This quote really nails that feeling. For the Vigiles, this is when their day starts, stepping out of the barracks and into a maze of pitch-black alleys where every flicker of a flame could mean disaster. And get a load of this number, 7,000. That's it. 7,000 men responsible for a city of 1 million people. A city packed to the gills with wooden apartment buildings just waiting to go up in smoke. That ratio is, well, it's terrifying. And it tells you everything you need to know about the kind of pressure these guys were under every single night. So, here's how we're going to walk through their world. We'll start with who these men actually were, then get into the gear they used to fight fires. We'll patrol the dark streets with them, see what happens when that alarm sounds, and explore their other job as the city's night watch. And finally, we'll see what it was like to make it through to sunrise. Okay, so first things first, who in their right mind would sign up for this job? You might be picturing tough, battle-hardened legionaries, but the truth is way more interesting. These men were part of Rome's shadow workforce, drawn from a part of society that had everything to fight for. The vast majority of the Vigiles were libertini, or freedmen. Now, these were men who had been slaves but were now free. But, being free didn't automatically mean you had rights or respect. For them, joining the Vigiles was one of the very few ways to get a real foothold in Roman society. And this slide right here shows you the grand prize. This was the deal on the table. You trade 6 years of your life, 6 years of dangerous, back-breaking work in the dark, for the most valuable thing in the Roman world, full citizenship. It was an incredible gamble, but for these men, it was a shot at a future they could never have otherwise. So, we have our recruits, but what are they carrying into this nightly war? Their equipment wasn't designed to fight other soldiers. It was designed to fight fire itself. A pretty specialized toolkit, blending some surprisingly clever ideas with a whole lot of brute force. This question really gets to the heart of it all. We're talking about apartment buildings that were 5, 6, sometimes 7 stories tall. These were the skyscrapers of the ancient world. So how on earth do you fight a fire that high up with their level of technology? It took a ton of teamwork, guts, and some serious muscle. All right, let's look at their gear. The siphons were their high-tech solution, basically hand-cranked pumps that could shoot a jet of water. For smaller flare-ups, they had centones. Think giant wool blankets soaked in a mix of water and vinegar to smother flames. Then you get to the demolition gear. Axes to bust down doors, ladders to get up high, and these incredible things called uncinni, huge hooks used to literally tear a burning building apart. And if things got really bad, they might even roll in a ballista, a military catapult, to knock a building down from a safe distance. Okay, they've got their tools. Now, let's step into their beat. Patrolling Rome at night wasn't just a quiet stroll. It was a journey into a dense, dark, and pretty dangerous city, a real labyrinth of shadows. You have to understand, Rome was really a tale of two cities. The rich folks lived in these stone houses called a domus, which were pretty safe from fire. But everybody else, they were crammed into insulae, these towering, flimsy apartment blocks made from wood and cheap brick. These places were absolute tinderboxes. And this is where the Vigiles spent their nights, just walking and listening. And they weren't just wandering aimlessly. This was a highly organized operation. As you can see here, the 7,000 men were broken up into 7 cohorts. Each cohort was assigned to 2 of Rome's 14 districts. This meant that every team knew their territory like the back of their hand. Every fountain, every shortcut, every building that was a known fire trap. So imagine them out there patrolling, listening, and then it happens. A spark catches, a flame grows, and the worst-case scenario begins. This is the moment where all their training gets put to the test. It's like a carefully practiced, almost desperate dance set against total chaos. And it all starts with one sound, the bucina. It's a loud, curved brass horn. When that thing blasted through the sleeping city, it was a terrifying sound. For regular citizens, it meant run. But for every single vigil in earshot, it meant go. It was the start of a race against an enemy that doubles in size every minute. And right away, that choreography kicks in. Everyone had a job. The aquarii were the water carriers. They'd form a human chain from the nearest fountain. The siphonari would get those pumps going, trying to aim at the base of the fire. And if the building was too far gone, the uncinari would start their brutal work, pulling it down to stop the fire from spreading. And that's what a fire break was. It was a terrible, terrible choice. You're intentionally destroying someone's home, a home that isn't even on fire yet, to save the rest of the block. It was this really brutal form of salvation, sacrificing one part of the city to save the whole. But as if fighting infernos wasn't enough, fire actually wasn't their only enemy. The darkness in Rome held all sorts of other dangers. The Vigiles were also the city's one and only police force after dark. They were the true keepers of the night. Yeah, their job description was pretty broad. They were on the lookout for grassatores, which is just a fancy word for muggers. They were tasked with catching runaway slaves, a huge concern for the wealthy. And their authority was real. Their commander, the Perfectus Vigilum, had the power to investigate fires and even punish landlords who let their buildings become death traps. They were the thin line keeping the entire city from falling into chaos. So after hours of that, patrolling, chasing criminals, maybe fighting a terrifying fire, the sky would finally start to lighten. For these men, just making it to the end of their shift was a victory in itself. This quote just paints such a vivid picture, doesn't it? As the rest of the city starts to stir, these guys are stumbling back to their barracks. They're completely exhausted, covered head to toe in soot and grime, their lungs just aching from the smoke. They disappear back into the shadows just as the city they protected comes back to life, most people having no idea what battles were fought while they slept. So that's their entire story condensed into a single night. It starts at sunset, getting ready for whatever comes, then the long, quiet hours of the patrol, then boom, 3 a.m., the horn goes off and it's chaos. And finally, as the sun comes up, they retreat, their job done, just as Rome's day begins. A day that was only possible because of their work. And that really leaves us with this final thought. We celebrate the emperors, the generals, the architects of Rome, but the city's survival, night after night, literally depended on thousands of these forgotten men. The eternal city stayed eternal thanks to them. And yet, history has mostly left them right where they worked, in the shadows.